You're very welcome back. Now, one of the most contagious diseases in the world, measles, can be incredibly serious for young children, pregnant women and those with a poor immune system.
With several cases of measles reported in Limerick, our resident GP, Dr. Brian Higgins, joins us now to explain the disease and how you can protect your family against it. Morning, Brian. Great to have you with us, as always. Tell us about this recent outbreak. Why is it happening and how serious is it? So,
there's been an outbreak in Dublin and Limerick. It'll probably spread around the rest of the country. Hopefully it won't, but it might. And it's of a disease called measles. Now, measles really should be assigned to the history books. Like, I think in around year 2000, the US came out and said that measles was gone out of the US, and that was just mainly due to the MMR vaccine, which started in 1985, which protects almost everyone against measles. Then what happened in around the year 2000, there was some poor information around the vaccine, or some inaccurate information that kind of led to some people deciding not to vaccinate their kids. And unless you have about 95% of the population vaccinated against measles, when one person gets infected, it will spread throughout the community, and that's why it's happening.
And that's what's happened here. So children, I know from my own children, they have this immunisation passport, and you go through, you stamp the different levels. So the MMR vaccine is given at 12 months?
Yes, yeah. So there's different types of vaccines. There's inactivated vaccines, which are just little proteins that we give kids that look like an infection and that boost a kiddie's immune response to that infection if they're exposed to it in the future. So when you're getting the vaccines at 2 months, 4 months, 6 months, they're all inactivated vaccines. The MMR is a slightly different type of vaccine. It's called a live vaccine. So we have to wait until kids are 1 year old to give it to them to make sure that they've a proper immune response to it. So we give them a dose when they're 1, and then they get the dose in primary school when they're 4 or 5.
Yeah, usually in junior infants, isn't it?
So basically, scare stories came out about this vaccine, as have happened with other vaccines. The uptake has dropped to a level where there are now outbreaks happening, so it's back on the agenda. What is it? And we're going to go through the symptoms and how they manifest themselves so people can have a look out. But fundamentally, what is measles?
So measles is, first off, it's the leading cause of vaccine-preventable death in the world.
It's serious. It can get serious.
It can get serious. So for every 5,000 people who are infected with measles, 1 will die. For every 40 people, 1 will end up in hospital, probably with the pneumonia. And even more than that will get kind of bad diarrhea or just get really unwell with it. But the majority of kids who get it, they start off with a little bit of a runny nose, they get red eyes, then they develop these little spots inside their mouth called Koplik spots. And that's usually how doctors diagnose it as measles before this really classic red rash comes out all over their body. They get really sick with it for about 10 days. They tend to have really high temperatures and just be off. And then some kids don't get better, they just get sicker and sicker and sicker, and then those kids have to go into the hospital for supportive care.
Are parents able to, GPs able to diagnose it at that early stage, or do they have to wait the extra week for more serious symptoms to manifest?
So unfortunately, we're getting better at diagnosing it, because for a long time we really didn't see any measles, and now we're starting to see measles again. And usually when we diagnose it is a child comes in, big red eyes, really, really unwell, temperature of 40, but we can't see a bacterial infection anywhere. And then we look inside the mouth and we see these little red spots, and then we say, look, this is measles. And usually what we do then is we try actually not to get those kids into our waiting rooms, because as you can imagine, this is, for the most part, is a self-limiting illness. The kids will get quite sick. They need some paracetamol just to bring down their temperatures, but most of them will get better. But in our waiting rooms, we can often have people who, are quite prone to getting very sick.
And how contagious is it?
Measles is the most contagious illness we have, just insofar as it spreads really, really easily. So what it spreads is every time you sneeze, those droplets spread. So if you have, say, like a Lewis tram with 100 people in it, if somebody goes in and sneezes, probably 90% of them will end up contracting it.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's highly contagious.
A little bit of the close area, but that's
Who
how much
is most at risk, Brian?
So the people who are most at risk are always anyone who's pregnant, young children, especially if their mothers haven't been vaccinated, because kids in those first 6 months, they're relying on maternal antibodies to protect them. Obviously, if the mum isn't vaccinated and isn't immune to MMR, to measles, then the baby has absolutely no immunity whatsoever for the first 6 months. elderly people, and then people who are immunocompromised, so people who are on chemotherapy, high-dose steroids for certain illnesses, or patients with HIV with a low immune response.
And if you're not sure, for those women, particularly pregnant women, if you're not sure whether you've had it or not, what's the easiest way to find out?
So,
GP?
Yeah, so usually at booking visits now, some GPs do it in their office and sometimes in the hospital. All of those will get measles and rubella antibodies done. And that's just a blood test that we can do to see if you're immune. And if you're immune, we don't have to worry about it. Obviously, we can't give this vaccine during pregnancy. Like there's certain people who can't get this. Because it's a live vaccine, certain people can't get it. So they're relying on the rest of the community to have it to protect them. So we can't give the vaccine in pregnancy. We'd avoid the vaccine if you have a high temperature. And if you're immunodeficient, like the people who are most at risk if they do contract measles, some of them actually can't get the vaccine.
Just to clarify then, Brian, if you have got the MMR vaccine, or if you had got your children vaccinated, there's nothing to worry about here in terms of this outbreak. It's just that percentage, which is a too high percentage, I guess, you probably agree, of people who need to go and address it and see, look, what do I need? What is the story? What is my situation?
Yeah, so the thing is, like anyone who's chosen not to vaccinate their kids, and we've all met people who've made that decision not to vaccinate their children, and they're not doing it. They think they're making the right decision, and there's a lot of really bad websites and bad information out there that these people have used as a resource to decide on whether to vaccinate or not. And the biggest thing is if you haven't vaccinated, go chat to your GP. Any GP will be happy to chat to you about. Just say, look, why have you chosen not to vaccinate, and should you get the vaccine? And then we can do catch-up vaccinations if needs be. If you're not sure if you've been vaccinated in the past, we can do a blood test and just check.
And the thing to remember is it's not just your own family that you're affecting, it's society in general, because the fewer people are vaccinated, the more likely this disease is to make a resurgence as it has done. Yeah,
exactly. So the vaccination rates have to be above 95%.
And where are we at the moment?
I couldn't say off the top of my head. We're not far off that. I know it did drop down below that, but thankfully now over the past couple of years it has been increasing and increasing and increasing, because we know it's safe, and there was a little bit of scaremongering, and thankfully the population is getting over that and realising that this is just a really safe and really good thing to do.
Brilliant.
Dr. Brian, thanks very much, as
Thanks,
always.
Brian. Now up next, we're back at the catwalk with 3 more looks perfect for any occasion. See you soon.